Welcome to Part 5. The processes we have discussed thus far affect the atmospheric carbon dioxide balance on timescales shorter than a century. On longer timescales, these processes must be very closely in balance. Because the fluxes involved are so large, persistent imbalances would lead to intolerable fluctuations in atmospheric carbon dioxide. Geological processes become the important controls on atmospheric carbon dioxide on longer timescales. The fluxes of carbon involved in these processes are small, and the reservoirs involved are large. Together, these two adjustments in scale mean that the importance of the geological processes affecting the sedimentary reservoir and the atmosphere are influential only on long timescales, on the order of 1,000 years to 1,000,000 years. The flux of land-derived and marine sediments to the sea floor fills sedimentary basins, many of which flank the margins of the continents. The continuous supply of sediment to these basins lead to the burial of previously deposited material. Eventually, as the process continues, sediments become buried to a depth of a few kilometers below the seafloor and become lithified. The organic carbon associated with these sediments is then entombed in sedimentary rock until weathering liberates the material to the biosphere. This organic carbon burial represents a leak of material from the short-term organic carbon cycle. It is this leak, rather than photosynthesis alone, which is nearly balanced by respiration and decay, that maintains the oxygen content of the atmosphere. Oxygen is continuously removed from the atmosphere by chemical reactions with organic matter that are preserved in rocks exposed at the Earth's surface and with volcanic gases such as hydrogen, sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide. The loss of oxygen is very slow, but the oxygen concentration would reach zero in a few million years if that gas were not supplied from other sources. The oxygen is replenished by the leak of organic matter into the sedimentary rock reservoir. For every carbon atom that enters this reservoir as organic carbon, one oxygen molecule is left behind. This is because the oxygen liberated during the photosynthesis of that carbon was not utilized during respiration or decomposition, and thus the gas remained in the atmosphere. During burial, the organic material in the sediment also undergoes significant changes in its structure and chemistry, and fossil fuels may form. Sediments derived from land plants, especially peat, which forms in swamps and bogs, accumulate on land or in basins near shore. If the concentrations of terrestrial organic matter are high in these basins, burial processes under high pressures and temperatures can lead to the formation of coal. Similarly, high concentrations of organic matter in marine sediments can produce sedimentary rocks that under high pressure and high temperature conditions of burial serve as sources of petroleum. This material is fluid and tends to migrate through the basin until it becomes trapped and accumulates. If the accumulation is sufficient, the petroleum will be an economical source of fossil fuel. More commonly, however, the concentration of organic matter is 1% or less of the total sediment material. As a result, most sedimentary rocks do not represent economically viable energy sources. Sedimentary rocks contain by far the greatest quantity of organic carbon on Earth, approximately 10 million gigatons of carbon. That is 10 million billion tons of carbon. Most of the organic carbon is found in shales, which are fine-grained sedimentary rocks formed by the lithification of muds. The residence time for the sedimentary organic carbon reservoir is about 200 million years. Weathering of the organic carbon in sedimentary rocks is an oxidation process requiring atmospheric oxygen. either by direct exposure to the atmosphere or by exposure to groundwaters containing dissolved oxygen. The oxidation of this material can be represented by the same schematic chemical reaction that we used previously for respiration and aerobic decomposition. The organic matter reacts with oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide to the atmosphere or groundwater. In this sense, the mining, pumping and combustion of fossil fuels represent merely an acceleration of the weathering process. The rocks from which humans have removed these fuels would likely have become exposed at the surface and undergone oxidation to form carbon dioxide sometime in the distant future. Human intervention, however, has speeded up this process by a factor of 1 million or more for these fossil fuel deposits. The release of organic matter from sedimentary rocks is occurring much faster than it can be replaced. Hence, fossil fuels represent only a short-term energy source. We have now explored the entire global organic carbon cycle. Pathways exist to recycle carbon from all reservoirs. Every reservoir in this cycle is directly connected to the atmosphere. Thus, the carbon dioxide concentration of the atmosphere changes continuously in response to changes in the flux of carbon to and from these reservoirs. The responses to these changes are rapid for the large fluxes associated with the biota, soils, and marine sediments, but slow for the small fluxes from sedimentary rock reservoirs. This observation will prove to be important when we consider the fate of carbon dioxide added to the atmosphere from the burning of fossil fuels. This is the end of Part 5.